Edition. A live video on your Facebook profile. Okay, I hope I'm going live here. Let me make sure. One of the downsides of doing a live stream show, you realize what happens. You have to kind of roll with, and my bad, I hit the wrong button, but I want to make sure that I am live streaming to all the channels. So we will get this kicked off in just a second here. Okay. I am live streaming to you keep yeah, keep, okay. Let me know. I can't see your name on the comments, Facebook user. You said I keep cutting off in YouTube. I'm getting ready to check YouTube to see make sure I'm streaming. I had to kind of recreate a new live stream because the button kind of canceled the live stream. So I want to make sure that I'm live. Let me know that I'm coming through. I see that I'm coming through on LinkedIn. Just let me know that I'm coming through on all the other channels. I'm kind of quickly checking on the other channels to make sure that I'm going live now. And I think I am. I don't see myself on YouTube, so I may have to upload this to the YouTube channel. So you may have to go over either to Facebook or LinkedIn or the website to check out this episode, but I will upload the episode to the YouTube playlist once it's done because it's not showing me going live. And the Facebook user, YouTube on, am I on? Okay, thanks Maggie for letting me know. Because it's not showing up on my YouTube, which it should show the live. But Maggie, you said I'm YouTube on. You said I'm on YouTube. I apologize for cutting out on you there. Like I said, my thumb hit the other button that stopped the episode. So live is live. Like I was telling my guests, the downside of doing a live is whatever happens. You kind of have to roll with it. But let's pick it up and roll with it from here. All right. I think we're on all the channels now. I had to quickly recreate a new live stream. So I'm going to have to do some editing for this episode. You caught the bio. I'm not gonna read his bio again. I'm just gonna bring him out and we'll be ready to go. But everybody, please welcome, help me welcome my guest and my friend. This time for sure, Tony Pham. Appreciate everybody sticking with me through this here. We got to give you some applause, Tony. We're sticking with you on that one. I apologize, Tony. Like I said, it's a challenge when you're running the show by yourself, having to go through all of this stuff.
But please, you made it work.
But please, everybody, again, hop on. We are back live. Like I said, I apologize for any inconvenience, but super excited. Like I said, about this episode. Been looking forward to doing it, Tony, for a while, ever since we connected. So I'm really excited about sitting down, talking about, because we're kind of, like I said, we do a lot of the same things, motion graphics, motion design. So I've been really looking forward to sitting down and really kind of diving into how things are working with you, your journey through learning motion design. And like I read in the bio, you went to the Art Institute of Phoenix. I went to the Art Institute of Houston. A little before your time, but that's something we'll dive into. My first question, which I always kind of like to ask guests, how they kind of got interested in art and animation. Were you always kind of interested in this space, or did you kind of have another idea of something that you were gonna do for a living and wanted to do, and then kind of found this, or were you just kind of always artistically inclined and knew you wanted to do motion graphics and animation?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's many twists and turns to where it got me to where I am now. But initially, when I first started, it really was the love of Jurassic Park, and I started drawing dinosaurs, and I wanted to try and like get better at it because my dinosaurs are really no better than drawing stick figures. Just moving forward. That wasn't exactly the coolest thing, but as I progressed and I started watching more animated movies, Atlantis from Disney, I started watching Tarzan, and then eventually I stumbled into like the Transformers series. Uh, and ultimately, I realized that I really wanted to get into animation just because I drew a lot. Animation required a lot of drawing, so I thought it was a natural fit. So going to the Art Institute of Phoenix, I wanted to be a 2D animator, and I thought it'd be the coolest thing to do it. And the first class was to do the traditional animations where you're flipping through papers and doing the
Okay.
pencil,
Yeah.
the light table and everything. The first maybe 2 hours was really cool, but then as the months passed, uh, I quickly realized that the amount of time that you spend drawing back and forth, and I think it took us about 2 months, and it added up to about 8 seconds worth. And all it was just like this hand moving this way, and that was about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought to myself, this is not going to work. I can't. I can't do this. I don't
Oh
have the
man.
patience. I just couldn't. So eventually, 3D got introduced later on during the semester, and then it just spun this whole new imagination for me. Where you know what, I can create characters, I can do these animations, and I don't have to redraw every frame. There's like a weird calculation where it just computes the different movements in between
Yeah.
those keyframes. And then it just brought me to where I am now, going from graphic design as one job after I graduated. And ultimately, I really want to explore animation and the love of storytelling that I've always wanted to be a part of growing up. Um, and unfortunately, a lot of the protagonists of the films I watched as a kid had no representation of me whatsoever. And so I've always felt a little bit more belittled because of that. So
Yeah.
I wanted to try and tell stories that had more of that representation, more people that look like me, more people who were heroic, who were scientists, who were smart, and not just like a side character that got killed off on the side.
Yeah.
So I wanted more, and that ultimately pushed me to what I'm doing
Yeah, yeah, and I've heard that from so many people. Like, I saw Jurassic Park, and that just did it for me. I wanted to be in film and animation and visual effects. So I know that's usually a starting point for a lot of people. You know, they saw Jurassic Park or Star Wars, that type of movie. It really got it kicked off for them. Um, and like I said, I went to the Art Institute. You know, I graduated in '87, so quite a few years before you did. They didn't even
now.
have computer animation at that time in their curriculum. I went for traditional art and design. So I thought it, interesting that they started. I think they started the year after I graduated. Kind of computer animation program and using computers and stuff. What was your experience like going through the Art Institute? Because I know, mine's was a little different, but, you know, how did you find going to the Art Institute as opposed to doing a lot of online courses? Now you're seeing a lot of online school animation schools and visual effects schools that you can learn online. Was that a conscious choice for you to go to a brick and mortar as opposed to doing online?
Yeah, I think what was the most attractive thing about the Art Institute was their bachelor's program in terms of you can get it done in 3 years instead of four. And so my mindset, or at least my logic at the time, was that let's just get the bachelor's and just get this thing done out of the way, throw me into the industry as soon as I can, and let's just get my feet wet as soon as possible, so then we can just get this ball rolling. So that was number one for me in terms of just getting that out of the way and just getting that bachelor's degree, because I didn't want to spend 4 years in college. I just wanted to get things done quickly and move on. Um, and then after that, everything else was more like the accomplishments and some of the instructors, um, and even more so, I guess, talking about how more involved I could be. And I'm looking at it. I don't know how blunt I can be on a live show,
Be blunt. I mean,
but
I try not to I try not to censor people. I definitely, definitely obviously, I don't go excessive, cussing or violence or anything like that, but I let people be and say how they are and say what they want. So, just say it.
okay, all right, okay. So I'll be blunt then. So my experience with the Art Institute was great until it came to the point of me graduating. And I say that because a lot of the stuff that was taught was almost 5, 10 years behind. And so by the time we graduated, the majority, well, first off, there was a huge amount of numbers of animators who had joined the program, and only 5 of us have graduated for that semester. And out of the 5, only 2 of us have actually gotten jobs. And looking back at it then, our jobs weren't even that related to the things that we wanted to do. I went into graphic design, another person went into like curriculum development, and it was nowhere near where we wanted to be in like making TV shows, animations, and whatnot. And again, going back to the lessons and the education, the softwares, everything was 5, 10 years behind. So when we were trying to do our portfolios, going to conventions, people were telling me, no one does this anymore. No one uses this technique. No one uses a software like that. And I thought to myself, what are you talking about? This is like the 3 years we spent, and all this time and all this payment that we did. What do you
Yeah.
mean no one uses this? And so ultimately, I had to scrap everything. I had to start over. I started buying magazines. I did online courses instead just because they were faster.
Yeah.
Uh, YouTube videos, again, conventions, seminars, whatever I could take to at least help elevate me to catch up. Um, and that's what I did for almost like 2, 3 years
Yeah.
just to catch up. So my time in the Art Institute was great in terms of just exposing me to the different paths. But in terms of getting me to that next step, it really just dropped the ball, and I essentially had to pick it up and carry it myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm laughing because, like I said, my sentiment about the Art Institute is kind of the same way. Although, like I said, when I went, it was obviously, like I said, 87 when I graduated, and it was only a 2 year. So I only got my associates. They didn't have a 3 year.
Mm.
That was all you were going to get. It was your associate's degree. And I think that obviously was one of the bad raps about, Art Institute, because that whole chain, because they had at that time art institutes all over Chicago, Pittsburgh, Houston, Phoenix. They had and that was kind of their bad rap. So I think a lot of people, even the ones that didn't go to the Art Institute know that whole chain. They were just about making money and just churning out people. Like I said, I
Yeah.
appreciate the time I went, and fortunately, it was really short, 2 years, um, and all of that. But I feel like like you said, it really wasn't anything that was kind of applicable to what you could wanted to do and wanted to kind of get into. Like I said, at the time, they were just teaching traditional graphic design, production design, that type of thing. Um, Definitely weren't teaching animation or anything in computers, and everything I learned on the computers is self-taught or YouTube channels
Yeah.
and that type of stuff. So I think that was kind of the big downfall. And then they went through their whole financial fiasco and just closed down. I don't know if the one in Phoenix is still open, but the one here closed
Mm-hmm.
down. Yeah, that whole chain just closed down. It just imploded because they were just trying to make money, trying to pass, and they were charging an exorbitant amount at that time. Um, and just try and get as many people through the Art Institute chain as they could, and even if you weren't. I mean, the stuff was it was kind of applicable. Like I said, I got production, type of roles, but for what people are wanting to learn now, you can go a lot cheaper and learn a lot more and learn a lot more on the tools that are used in the industry today through online learning. Of course, there's SCAD, that are great schools, but obviously Art Institute isn't on those levels of the
Hmm.
SCAD or Full Sail, those type of things.
Yeah.
Um, was your so well, I mean, you kind of said what you said about the Art Institute. So do you feel like your degree really doesn't a bachelor's degree really doesn't play in getting work as opposed to your real, which we are going to take a look at a lot of the work that and they do some amazing work, TKMV Studio. But now, a degree, unless you're planning on teaching or being in, like I said, that kind of structured, teaching role, does
Hmm.
the bachelor's degree help you in any way of getting work and in the studio getting work and all of that? Or is it just really more about the work?
I tell this to people a lot. Uh, all the projects and the accomplishments I've made, and even the milestones I've had so far, no one has ever asked for my degree.
Yeah,
Nobody. No one has ever asked or really even cared for it.
yeah,
And so when it really comes down to it, all they care about is if you can do the work, you can do it at high quality, and you can do it on time.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Bachelor's degree means it's almost meaningless.
yeah, in the way, like I said, you can get much better quality of training and learning. Like I said, going through some of these online schools like Animation Mentor or School of Motion. I don't know if you heard of them. School of Motion. They have some
Oh
great
yeah.
motion. Yeah, that's some great courses, and for a whole lot cheaper. Like I said, you don't have to go into amazing debt to get really targeted learning, and that. So how did your parent did you ever express that to your parents, you know, when you decided to go to the Art Institute, and what was their kind of thought on you kind of going into this space?
Yeah, they saw the red flags before I did. Um, but me being young and I was
Impulsive.
starstruck. I was like, who cares? It's 3 years. Let's just do this. But no, my family, they saw the red flags. They were trying to tell me, hey, don't do it. Don't be part of this. There's so many things that's wrong with it. It just doesn't make sense. But I was like, who cares? Just go. And so, yeah, they told me. I mean, like I said, they gave me all the warning signs. Uh, I saw them a little bit late, and even what you mentioned before, yeah, the art institutes started to shut down. I think 6 months after I graduated, the school shut down, and so anyone that was caught anywhere towards like the ending of their graduation or coming up on their graduation or just starting or even somewhere in between, they got cut loose, and because a lot of the credits were private, they were non-transferable to universities. So some of the folks had to basically start over, and that, I mean, yeah, I can't. There's so much bitterness towards our Institute of Phoenix, and that could be a whole nother
No,
rabbit hole we can go down
trust
to.
me, I feel you on this, and I'm so thankful I went when I did, because, like I said, I went from 85 to 87, so I got in early. It was expensive, but it wasn't near expensive as it was as it got towards the end. But
Mhm.
definitely, like I said, I feel for the ones that kind of got caught in that tailspin that the Art Institutes went. Um, but I am thankful I got in and got out when I did, with minimal, uh, school loans. I think at the max, it came out to like 10 grand. I took about 10
Mhm.
grand worth of, loans for semesters and stuff. So I got out pretty unscathed, where most people, like I said, it was just going up and up. And I feel, you know, you, it was almost a scamish kind of thing. Because, like I said, it was just so much for the money, and it
Yeah.
was just mismanaged, and it didn't really look out for the students and stuff. And
Yeah.
like I said, I feel bad for the ones that really went through it towards the end of it and got, like I said, caught up in that tailspin of them imploding on themselves, for sure. Um, Obviously, uh, for you, that was a big lesson, um, but you kind of came out on the other side. What's been kind of the hardest thing that you've learned doing motion design and animation? Because I know for me, coming from a more traditional art background, it was a big kind of learning curve to learn, motion design, animation, especially, I guess when I was kind of getting into it, there weren't as many online schools, and you can probably watch a few things, and it definitely wasn't as many as YouTube videos as there is now, but
Yeah.
just the concept of animating was challenging for me. What was kind of the hardest thing and the biggest challenge for you in in learning motion graphics, even when you were at the Art Institute? Well, obviously they started you on, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because I don't think you may get some traditional stuff, but they're going to put you in Maya in the softwares that studios are using. So
Yeah.
it's I would figure it would be very hard to learn, how to animate and really use the tools that are industry standard tools.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably one of the biggest challenges was, well, at least starting off was like the lack of exposure, or at least the length of the exposure to the software that's needed to do the work. So as an example, we learned how to use ZBrush, but we were only using ZBrush for like 5 weeks, and we were expected to be like experts at it.
Mm,
And so, and even on top of that, learning how to rig, we only did that for maybe about 10 weeks, and we were expected to be proficient at it. Now, from someone starting from ground zero in 10 weeks to be good at animating, just using some basic knowledge, that's asking a lot. You essentially would have to do a lot of your own homework,
yeah,
a lot of your own tutorials, which also adds to the fact like, then what's the point of going to the art institute if I have to teach myself anyway? But I think the biggest, after that, the next challenge would be just learning how to figure out the concepts, because motion design and then going into your character animations is almost two different animals, two different beasts. And
yeah,
so I had to really retrain my brain in terms of, okay, if I want to have this movement come in a certain way, uh, I can't really think of it as if like I'm trying to move an arm or a leg to try and do the same thing. I had to reteach myself in terms of really looking at like the different elements, like pieces, letters, or strings or whatever it is, and treat it as its own thing. And ultimately learning the software that does it pretty well. So going from Maya and ZBrush for character animation and then jumping into Cinema 4D was a whole nother beast to try and figure out how to use all these different components, the new UI, the new tutorials and all that stuff. So it was a lot of transitioning from one software to another, and then of course retraining your brain to look at graphics and rather than just thinking about character animation.
yeah, yeah. No, I think, and that's hard for a lot of creators, especially a lot of creators that are using multiple softwares. I mean, I know some people focus, their whole thing is they're just in Maya and that's what they do, animate, or they're just in ZBrush. But when you're using a lot of different tools, at the speed at which tools change and you're having to learn things, it can be a real challenge. Like I said, I know for me, everything has pretty much been self-taught in as far
Hmm.
as just computers, animation, motion graphics, because I just, that's not what my degree was in. So when I got interested in it, I know I was how I started really diving into 3D was I was doing um, graphic design for a turnkey company that built like systems. They built like video toaster systems and stuff like that, but they also sold animation software. And I don't know if you remember the software, Softimage, um, but that was the one that was used to create Jurassic Park. So that's why I
Oh,
was just geeked about learning it. I was like, wow, they did Jurassic Park with this um, to create Jurassic Park, all the dinosaurs and stuff. But it was a really dense kind of technical software. And so when I was trading out doing graphics for, and they would let me come in and learn on the systems and stuff. And he brought out all the manuals, and it must have been a stack of manuals, like seven
wow.
or eight, and they were thick manuals. And it just really turned me off on learning 3D because I kind of look at it like Maya. Maya's a really deep program, and there's a lot of little stuff. And if you're not like just deep into it, you could easily get discouraged with learning things. And
Yeah.
so they started selling Lightwave, and I don't know if you remember that software, Lightwave 3D. But
Hmm.
that's the software they were using to do like um, Babylon 5, Sequest, all the sci-fi shows that were on TV. They weren't really film quality animation, but they were more
Yeah.
used for TV because it was a really fast and easy software to animate things and get through. And so they started selling that, and that just made it so much easier for me to wrap my head around animating and 3D. So software like that and 3D Studio, where they got all these buttons that you can just easily get sidetracked in. Um, for me, just I like something simple enough that I can wrap my head around to get into it. Um, Now with the advent of AI and AI coming into this space, how has that impacted you know just what you do as far as motion design and animation, and then people kind of having this kind of preconceived notion of work getting done because they're just seeing AI can crank it out like that. What's your thoughts on AI and how has it kind of impacted how you work and how the studio works? Have you started leveraging it?
Yeah. So I look at it like this with AI because I'm honestly it's a hot button topic. AI is a tool and it's meant to be used as a tool. So if you were to go back in time and you were to look at a time period when 3D animation was starting to get introduced, just imagine how your traditional animators felt about incorporating a software that you only have to really worry about setting up keyframes, and the software computes all your in betweens from there. So it increases the efficiency of your work and your entire pipeline dramatically. And in a way, AI can do the same thing for you. Of course, it's all dependent on the user and how the user wants to go about using this tool. So you have people who will generate illustrations and then call it original artwork when clearly that's not the case.
Yeah,
That's outrageous. It uses references. But if you're using it how it's meant to be to help improve your efficiency, then yeah, you can do all kinds of things with AI. I think that's something that creators just need to understand that it's all about how you use it, right? Technology is always going to be evolving and advancing. There's really nothing stopping it at this point. It's just how we use it and how we can incorporate that to our portfolio, our workflow, and just trying to figure out to find like a nice balance between it. Sure, you're going to get some people who are or might be scumbags and try and use that for their own ways and just call
yeah,
that their own work. But, if you can find a way to balance it, you can do so much with it. And in terms of incorporating that into my workflow, uh, I've used it. No one get mad at me. Okay, I do use it.
I
I
use it
use it
too.
for So I use it to help out with some of the more mundane tasks. So for some of the animations are done, or even more so into some of the editing that needs to be done, some of the color corrections, or even like some written components that we need to be assisted with. I'll use that, but for some of the tasks, I feel like I can really have more creative freedom to
Yeah,
really flex my visual muscles, if you will.
yeah,
I will go ahead and just do that on my own. But I only use AI to the extent where if it's something that I can't handle on my own, or to the point where I know it's just taking up a tremendous amount of time, then I'll start incorporating it. And
Yeah.
again, 3D softwares incorporate different components where it computes different frames in between anyway.
Yeah.
So, I'll set up different keyframes, and the software that I'm using helps assist with that. And then, of course, I'm going between Maya, Cinema 4D, ZBrush, Custom Painter. I'm using all these different softwares. So having a little bit of a bridge helps just keep things a little bit more organized.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I totally agree with you. I look at it as a tool to make a task easier. It doesn't take the place or replace the creative person that's putting something together. It's a tool that's used, should be used to aid a task quicker, whether it's writing or to get ideas, using Chat GPT to get kind of ideas of something and kind of flesh out an idea or something like that. Hey, you know, Adobe in Photoshop has Adobe Sensei. I would much rather use that than spend the time trying to create a path to cut something out. So it makes a task easier. And I tell people it's a tool, and like any other tool, there's always going to be those people that use a tool the wrong way or how it's not meant to be used. A gun is a tool in at the basis of it's a tool, but obviously there are people that use it the wrong way, just like a car is a tool. Obviously, there are people that are going to use it the wrong way, and AI is no different. There's going to be people that, oh, I can just put in a prompt, and like you said, I'm an artist now, and it's an
Yeah,
original piece of work. There's always going to be those ones, but I am encouraged because I think most creatives, people that are truly creative, artists, have learned the basis of what their skill level is, know to use how to use AI um, in the space where it is. I don't know if you've heard of man, they're a visual effects studio and Corridor Crew, and they wanted to do an experiment to see if they could create an AI anime style film. Um,
yeah.
but they
Oh, I think I've
filmed
heard of.
everything. Yeah, they filmed everything, edited it, and everything like that. But they just used AI to kind of create this anime style. So I think they're in the hands of true creatives. They know AI is a good thing. It'll help me, make certain tasks easier. It doesn't take the
Yeah,
place of me as a creative, but it's there. Like I said, like Photoshop. Photoshop's a tool. All the other apps out there are AI tools in a sense. They're making a task easier. Just like you mentioned at the beginning, before computer animation came out, traditional artists, they felt threatened because they're like, well, now I have to learn computers or this and that. But you at the basis, the core of what animation is, the principles stay the same. It's just you're translating it from 2D to computer, 3D to a computer, hand drawn to a computer. So I'm encouraged about what AI can do in the hands of true creatives that are using it as an enhancement to what they're doing.
yeah,
Um, Again, everybody just jumping in. Appreciate you, like I said, kind of sticking with me through the little melee there at the beginning. But we're rolling on and having a great conversation. Mr. Dewan, appreciate you tuning in. Happy Saturday. Hello, Tony. I noticed you had to, yeah, I had to restart the stream. Yeah, we had some technical difficulty at the beginning. So my bad. That's like I said, it's the nature of live. Mr. Kevin, appreciate you, Kenny. Appreciate you tuning in. Today's conversation. It's always interesting reading Kenny's comments because he likes to say delectably, scrumptiously, deliciously, edibly. He puts in all these words. That's why I love Kenny. Appreciate you tuning in for sure and being part of the show and checking us out. Um, to this point, outside of your parents telling you about the Art Institute, what's been the best piece of advice that's kind of helped to serve you? as you're learning things and as you're building your business, what's been the best piece of advice that's been given to you that has stuck with you?
Oh man, best piece of advice. Uh, I would say, um, this sounds like a cliche, but be yourself. Um, yeah, it's a total cliche. It's, be yourself. And what does that even mean? And I was in reference to that. What it's meant to me is learning just to embrace your roots, embrace who you are as a person, as an artist, as a visual designer. And so, for anyone who has known me in the past, known has seen me with like a buzz cut hair like this. All this is new. Like having my hair grew out like this and having curls was something completely new to me. It was exciting to see that my hair would coil up like this. It was super cool. And what that ultimately had done for me is it actually filtered out a lot of people that I don't want to work with. And that also opened up opportunities for people who do want to work with me in
Yeah,
terms of getting involved in either in the conversation in terms of representation, getting involved in like an animated project, an educational project, or just finding a way to be more involved with the community. And then doing so has allowed me to feel more comfortable with myself. And with that, it gave me confidence to explore new skills, new softwares, new people, and even new events, and all that just brings in all this wealth of knowledge and this wisdom. And I bring it back and I think to myself, like, what can I do with this? Where can I go with all this experience I just learned from all these people? And so I bring that back into my work, whether that's again through my animations, my 3D modeling, my illustration. So a lot of what I've done so far, and not only just with myself, but also with my business and my creative endeavors, is that it's a strong reflection of the people I've met through my past, and I'm sure I have no doubt in the future as well. And all that just stands out just from the acceptance of understanding who you are as a person, your values, which I think is incredibly important, especially as artists, just because Don, I'm sure you've experienced this as well, where you're gonna meet people who want to do a project, but want to do it for almost like for scraps, right? And it's like,
yeah.
yeah, no, you'll get the experience, you'll get the exposure.
Exposure.
Throw
Yeah,
that out the window. Who cares about that? You got bills to pay, you got food. You got to take care of yourself. Gas isn't gonna pay yourself on exposure. So I through your values and understanding who you are, you start to filter out a lot of those people, and those projects start to come in, and they complement your work, they complement your values,
yeah,
and before you know it, as you get more comfortable in that space, you start to explore, and then your skills expand. You never know where that can take you. I'm surprised where I am today. It's
yeah,
kind of crazy, and
yeah.
all of it just started with just accepting who you are.
Awesome, awesome. Well, you know how I like to do it on those nuggets. When you drop a bomb, you got to put a bomb out there. That was a bomb of a nugget for sure. What you said, it definitely. I don't think there's an artist out there that at some point during their journey they've heard that, oh, it's exposure. You'll get exposure, or something for your portfolio type of thing. It definitely, as you go, get further along in your journey, your career, there will be those opportunities where it does make sense to, invest and say, hey, I believe in your project. I really love your project. Let's work together on it and that type of thing. And you tend to let those ones go that are just they just want to use you for your talent and stuff. So I definitely agree with a lot of what you're saying is knowing who you are and the value of what you know, your skill and the level that you do, and you'll come across those people that are really true creatives that, yeah, they understand. Like I said, they may not be able to pay you a lot, but you built a relationship and a friendship. So hey, I can, do some graphics for your project and this and that, knowing that we'll work together on something somewhere down the line, for sure. So, yeah, that's I think that's the artist kind of thing they hate to hear. You, you know, you, it's, you can use it for your portfolio as learning experience. Was um, starting your studio, the first thing that you kind of went into after that whole kind of you know fiasco of graduating and then realizing that what I learned really isn't applicable to for me to go into a studio, and having to relearn a lot of stuff. Was that kind of a reasoning for or starting your studio, or did you have this kind of space in between where you were working, a job, and that was you were going to take into account, well, let me work my way, even though it may not be directly related, let me kind of work my way into a studio as opposed to just starting your own company, learning what you needed to learn, and then just moving forward from there.
Yeah. So, funny story about that. I actually wanted to start a studio when I was a kid, like when I was just learning about like films and like, oh, you can do this as a job. Like this is cool. So as a kid, I've always wanted to make my own movies, and I didn't exactly know what that meant. But as I got older and going to the art institute, I was like, oh, now I know. I want my own studio. I want this. I want that. So throughout my experience in the art institute, I was also like recruiting, using quotations for that, because I was
Yeah,
trying to find a team. I was really hoping to find a team where I can get together. We can do this, almost kind of like a corny college idea where you're hanging out in a garage, you come up with like these ideas, and then you hope for it to blow up. But unfortunately, it didn't go that way. But I still had the intention of always starting my own studio, going to a graphic design job. It was all right to take care of the bills, but I was still trying to find my way to get to that point. And then after that, I was working at a training facility doing like medical animations for skeletal systems, the muscle
yeah,
system. It's really like that really ramped up my taste buds to just like I need to get this thing done. So it's always been there. It's always been an itch, and I want to say what maybe 3 4 years ago, I would say it really something just triggered it, and I just wanted to keep going and just pursue it. And then not too long after, I started a studio, and I wanted to do it more so as a reflection for my family. So
hmm,
for those who don't know it, the four letters for that's on TKMB Studio.
yeah,
So T is for my mom, Twee. K is for Kristen, N is for Martha, and B is for Veronica. So being the first generation in the States, being the first one to finish high school, being the first to finish college, and having, you know, my parents come from other countries to be here and given
yeah,
up a lot to be here. I want to be able to show that in my career and also all the things I've done and all the things I will be doing. So I wanted the studio to be a representation of my family, almost as a way to just show that we made it here, we made a presence, and we're gonna keep going. And
yeah,
so that was one of the bigger drives of why I wanted to run my own studio is because I wanted to captain my own ship. I wanted to march to the beat of my own drum.
yeah,
I wanted to do things my way. I want to do things that made sense to me and was reflective of the things that I wanted to stand for. And I
yeah,
knew trying to go into a studio, not only would it be like a long progress of trying to get to that point, but I would have to deal with the hurdles of the different work environments, the stereotypes, the unnecessary comments, and there's so just you can go like a long list with these things, but I ultimately just wanted to just do my own thing
yeah,
to just to make to make something out of it.
yeah,
And that was reflection of my family, our efforts, and then of course just the stories that I wanted to tell.
yeah, yeah. Well, do you think it would have been quicker? You would have, I guess, learned the process quicker had you, gotten into say Disney or Pixar or some of the other studios out there. Because I often think, kind of like you, I always want to do my own thing, but I would love, and even maybe now, I don't know at my age, but e- being able to get into the studio to learn the working process of how to put an animated film together, an animated project together. Do you think that would have sped up, had you done that? Had you tried and spent time trying to get into one of those studios? The whole process of running TKMV and, getting to where you want to go with that as your own studio.
Yeah, I actually think what would have sped up that learning process is me just taking and putting the pedal to the metal in terms of just making your own film. Because
Yeah.
I was always hesitant at thinking, oh, I had to do this, I gotta be this, I gotta have XYZ to make a film. But in reality, when you break it down to its fine-tuned components, everyone makes movies that basically the same way. There's different productions or different phases to every production. You got your development, pre-production, production, and then post-production. And then every pipeline, sure, it has its own quirks and its own tweaks. Like maybe DreamWorks has their own render engine. Maybe Pixar has its own render engine. Or maybe they have certain softwares to help animate curls or hair or
Yeah.
maybe like clothing. But when you really break it down, it's the same component. So if I wanted to create my own animated film, I would draw the character. Okay, character design. I would need to have an idea of what my shot list looks like. So I might make a shot list. I might go into storyboarding, animatic. Okay, cool. And then it's a decision: do I want to do 2D or 3D, claymation, whatever, whatever the process is. Now you start creating the assets. Okay, so if it's 2D, are you going to draw it, or are you going to use something like Toon Boom, where you're going to create different I guess facial
Yeah.
expressions, hand movement, whatever. The process is the same. I think jumping into a studio is so glorified in colleges and making it seem like that's your only career like success.
Yeah.
But if you look at how things are now, you got the success of so many different indie films and indie shows, indie series on YouTube, on
Yeah.
Patreon, or even through podcasting, or even what you're doing now,
Yeah.
that opens up so many opportunities for you to explore your skills in ways that was might not have been available 5, 10 years ago. And so I say it's not a bad idea to go into like these big productions and these studio to get the skills that you want to get, but just know that that's not your only option.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
you have so many different ways that you can branch out, and even going into education, you have School of Motion, you got YouTube, you got so many different like ways to access information to train yourself to get to that point. And some of those courses will actually walk you through those production pipelines.
Yeah.
And so you have the fundamentals of what you need. The only thing that would be different is that if you go from one studio to another, they might have their own little quirk or their own twist or their own methods of doing something, and that's about it. Everything
Yeah.
else still follows the exact same, you know, formula.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I agree. And kind of looking back, like I said, on my time at the Art Institute, I think their only goal, and that may be, I would say, a good portion of the schools, unless it's like a school of motion type of thing, but like SCAD or you know Full Sail. I don't know if they so much teach you just what you need to learn to get into a studio as opposed to running your own business type, have a business course to those that are just looking to, hey, how do I run my own animation studio? And I agree with you, and I tell a lot of people, even if your end goal is to get into Pixar or Disney or one of the studios, you still have, you shouldn't wait to create your own idea because you never know what path that may take you down. And like I said, creating a web series, if your animator, or you have all these channels now to put your content and put your idea out there, and to build something. Is that something that excites you about the time that we live in now? There are so many channels, so many tools now available, so much education now available for the independent creator to not necessarily feel like they have to go running to get into a studio, or have to, because there's so many people that are competing for those seats because that's
Yeah.
their goal. They're animated, they're 3D artists. Oh, I want, or character artists, that type of thing. Oh, I want to work at Disney. I want to work at Pixar, which is a great thing, but it's almost like the NBA or football. Odds are it's going to take you, unless you're really super skilled and really fit within what they're doing. It takes you a while to kind of get into that. And the amount of kids that are coming out of school now with the learning and training, they're competing for those jobs. Um, do you feel like now is a great time for those ones that, like I said, can get their idea out, whether it's their own little animated short series or, just posting on Instagram and all the other channels out there? How do you feel about this time that we live in? Again, I can kind of look at it a little more objectively because I I'm pre-computer, you know, and all the technology that's out now, so I can appreciate it a lot. But for you, the one that's kind of recently coming out and having this drive to build your own studio and get your content out there in your own way, how do you feel about this time and space that we're living in now as far as technology and the tools?
It's a great time. It's a fabulous time. Sure, it's not going to be easy. I always say it's choose your poison. Pick the lesser of the two evil. If you want to go into a studio space, it's going to take you a while. Not only it's just like you mentioned, you got to build like a portfolio, you got to build like your network and all that fun stuff. It'll take you a while. And depending on how you are as a person, you might be able to get that done faster than the person next to you. But then you have to realize you're not just competing with the people in your class. You're competing with the entire state, the nation, other countries. You're competing with a lot of people,
Yeah,
and I don't think a lot of people realize that there's a whole
world.
world trying to go after for like these different seats. And so going back to independent creators, there's so many different successes that shows that it is a possible route. The Has Been Hotel, Oddball that ended up on Netflix. And then I think one of the more recent one was like the Amazing Circus, and that really blew up. I saw merchandise the other day at an elementary school that I was volunteering at. And so I was just thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this, now you have access to social media, Instagram, TikTok, and of course doing even like these streams, podcasts, and there's just so much availability to get exposure. Now you can almost do whatever you want, and as long as you figure out how to work the system, play into the algorithm using like the memes and the different trends, your content can explode so fast. You can gain your followers, and if you use something like Ko-fi or Coffee or whatever it's called, and then Patreon,
Yeah.
you can use that as a way just to fund your own projects,
Oh
and it
yeah.
doesn't have to be anything crazy. There's just so much flexibility in terms of what you can do for yourself as a creator, as a visionary, that the door is so wide open. All you have to really do is, well, maybe not the only thing, but as a starting point, is just taking that leap to just start.
Yeah.
Because that's always the hardest part, is just getting started. It's like trying to go to the gym. I always tell myself after eating like a bunch of what I've learned are Hawaiian donuts, uh, to make an effort to go out to the gym, go running. But every time I wake up, I'm just like, like, what's the point? Like, why do I got to do this? But as soon as you put your foot out the door, you get out, you get that momentum, and then before you know it, you're walking, and then
Yeah.
from walking, you're running, and from running, you're sprinting, and before you know, you're already in the motion. You're already accomplishing things. It's just getting started. So I say this is a great time for anyone who has ideas, and you don't even have to jump into a full-on animation. There are graphic novels have been adapted into full-on series or even feature films.
Yeah.
Ready Player One was a book before it became a movie.
Yeah.
So, there's so many ways to bring your ideas to life, and it doesn't have to be the most expensive route. You can start small, and I say
Yeah.
just start somewhere. It don't have to be going into like a $500,000 budget, because let's be realistic. To get that much money, you have to be pretty well connected, or just have enough money yourself to do
Yeah.
that. But yeah, start small.
Yeah. No,
Opportunities out there.
I totally agree. Just the starting is the hardest part, and making the decision. This is what I want to do. Let me just start. And that's, like I said, why I love the independent creator, because they leverage the tools. They just start. They, like I said, they understand. Hey, I don't need to make a full length feature film. I can make a 2 minute, animated short or animated or a film or whatnot. I have all the channels to promote it. If I do want to go the fun fundraising route. There's Kickstarter. There's, like you said, coffee. There's so many places that people will fund you if you have a great idea and to get it out. Um, I wanted to ask you because we talked a little bit about your kind of final experience with the Art Institute and how you were talking about how other graduates were not finding success and that type of thing. One, did you kind of build the relationships? One, are they now kind of in the space, or whether it's their own or whether they're at a company doing that? And two, did you kind of work to build relationships that may, like I said, because I feel like that's a big part of the industry is the connections that creators have within themselves, whether they went to school with people they work with or worked on a project at a studio. They tend to kind of refer each other and work together. That's what I've found, how they kind of move around to different places. Somebody, you know, that they went to school with, they'll reach out and say, hey, are there any openings or anything happening at your studio? Or they'll get recommended, hey, I went to school with this guy. He's a great 3D modeler, and
Yeah.
bring them on. Do you really work hard at trying to build relationships with people that you can collaborate with and work with on not only what uh, TKMV is doing, but maybe what they're doing, and just try and build relationships?
Oh yeah. If I would say 50, if I was to divide it, I would say 50% of what I do is networking, just straight up networking, chatting, connecting, and then the rest of the 50% is actually doing the work, right? And so why 50%? Because it's so important in what we do to know, because like we only want to work with people that we trust, people that we know. It's very, very difficult to try and work with anyone that we don't really know, and we might just be getting something off or something just doesn't feel right, and then they do the work and you're like, like you just messed this whole thing up. I don't want you anymore. So, so through networking, it just builds that level of comfort because you already know someone that has already good work ethic, who has a good portfolio, has a good skill, who maybe is even teachable, who is workable. And so through those networks, you might be able to just have a little bit more of relaxation in terms of just collaborating. And on
Yeah.
top of that, through your network, yeah, those referrals come in. Like a lot of the projects I'm getting in now are through referrals. And it's kind of crazy. And even right now, I always say like one of the best relationships I've had so far is my connections with Arizona PBS because even through them, it's allowed my business to grow and get the kind of exposure that I didn't quite expect. I had plans for it to happen like maybe further down the road, but now it's starting to come in a little bit earlier than I had anticipated. But people are referring them to me, and now
Yeah.
there's projects that are coming through that I'm working with people, helping develop, being a part of these different conversations, and all this stems from like all that hard work of just building those relationships. It might not be something that happens immediately, which I think is something that we need to understand that a lot of this stuff takes time. It could be months, could be a couple months, could be even years.
Yeah.
Like one guy I met a couple years ago at a film festival, he remembered me from our connections on LinkedIn, and then a year or a year and a half later, now we're working on an animated short, and he remembered me from it. So shout out to you, Brian, if you're ever watching this. Uh, but yeah, so those relationships are so important and so key, especially if you do good work and people want to keep working with you. That's so important. And the one thing is if you burn a bridge, I feel that stuff spreads so fast.
Yeah, it does. That's another thing I learned about the industry is if you're a difficult person to work with or have a bad attitude, that goes around really quickly. They would rather have you know, and most studios do that. They really, which is why they interview you, is partly to see whether your work is good, but then the other part is, do you fit within the culture of this company? Are you
Yeah.
easy to work with? Are you manageable? A enjoyable kind of person? Because if they feel like you have a bad attitude, that's almost like a scarlet letter, and it goes around very quickly. That you're a difficult person to work with, no matter how talented you are. I think most studios will kind of look at that a lot more. You know, you could be a really great artist, but if you're a hole to work with, or you're just difficult to work with, you're not gonna last too long. That's what I've
Yeah,
found.
I agree. I 100% agree. I've seen it reflected in some of my former classmates where they were difficult to work with in a classroom and trying to go out to the field, it didn't take them anywhere. You
Yeah,
know, and even you asked me before about where my classmates might be at in terms of, their careers. As far as I can tell, a lot of them are still trying to figure it out what their next step is. And even some of the ones that might be a tad bit more ambitious are still not quite in the realm that they want to be in. And granted, we also had to play the catch up game. So a
yeah,
lot of us tended to burn out after that 5, 10 years of just trying to catch up. So it's not an easy game to play. It's really, really not. And a lot of times you have to be just as a freelancer, you have to chase in projects after projects after projects up until you get to the point that your reputation does you well and those projects just come to you through referrals. But to get that started, it's really just a lot of hustling, a lot of hustling, a lot of hustling. And that can burn you out too. So again, it makes life easier if you just know more people, reaching out either online, going to conventions, events, whatever you can do just a network is so key to just being successful as an artist and even just as a business owner.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, you know, as a business owner or a creative, building those relationships, going out, meeting people, really talking and connecting, and building true relationships, which is, like I said, why I so love doing this show. And I've told every uh, guest that's come on the show, I don't have guests on, I have my friends, because I really work to build a friendship outside of the show. You know, you coming on the show, because I know we're creatives. There's an opportunity us for learn it from each other, work together, and build. That's how things get done, especially in this kind of creative space. And we're getting ready to take a look at TKMV's demo reel and dive a little deeper, because I got a little more deeper questions into the studio, where you're wanting to take it, and the things that you're wanting to do. So let's take a quick look at their work before we move on here. Some amazing, amazing work for sure. And I want to ask you, because, like I said, I think like this too. You do a lot of, like I said, client stuff and project type of stuff. Um, where's your idea? Where but you say you really love story driven things. You really want to get into doing animated films. Is that the direction that you're really wanting to take TKMV as, say, like a Pixar? where you're doing your own type of story driven ideas, whether it's your own story or whether you're collaborating with a writer and doing that type of thing. Is that something that you're the kind of direction that you're trying to take, TKMV? Because, like I said, just looking at my own business, we do a lot of corporate client stuff, but my goal is to kind of create my own stories, work with others that may have their stories, type of IP.
Yeah. So answering your question there, uh, yes, my primary goal is to get my studio to the point where we can just create our own content, create our own animated shows, and ultimately work our way to creating our own animated films. And even just expanding from there, where we're also expanding to like live action films, TV shows, or whatever it is. And so, what was really the catalyst to all of that was that I wanted to get something out there on the map as soon as possible. And what that ultimately became was exploring with Yazzie and Jazzy. And that was the project I used to pitch to Arizona PBS. And PBS is a pretty well known brand
Yeah,
all across the states. So getting teamed up with just the local station alone was a huge win. And again, that took quite some time for me to chip away at for them to find that, oh, yeah, yeah, okay, now we can talk to you. And I tell you, I was really using the metaphor where you're using a stick to poke the bear, I was poking that bear with basically like a tree trunk. I was throwing rocks, I was doing whatever I can to really get the attention, and it ultimately worked.
yeah,
I think the saying is like squeaky wheel gets the grease or
yeah.
something like that,
Greasy
right?
World, yeah,
Uh, so yeah, exploring with Yazzie and Jazzy is a perfect project to take me to that next step to really show that being an independent creator, being a small business owner, you can still hit big and still do those bigger projects that you hope that you could be a part of going through Disney, Pixar, Netflix, or whatever. And so Yazzie and Jazzy is perfect for that and combining not only the mission, but also what I want to do in terms of representation, having
yeah,
science, having education, having minority and diverse crew members, voice actors, and people who have worked on the behind the scenes to be part of this project. And going back into being more independent and creating your own stuff, having our own podcast, the ZT Animation Brush podcast, is a really good way for me to, again, go back into my network, my friendships, and talk to some of the folks, kind of like what we're talking about now, and say, hey, we've known each other for a while. Let's chit chat. We've always had good conversations, so let's just do a recording. It's really nothing too different. Just don't cuss too much. But uh, and then we're also working on putting together our first web comic, which I did not realize would take so much time. But same idea. Just gotta get started. You gotta start
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah,
So I'm really pushing into getting into more original content, creating our own stuff. Because I love the client that I work with. I love the projects that come in. But at the end of the day, the one thing I want more than anything is for us to do our own thing, because that's the same idea why I want to start the business, is to march to the beat of our own drum, be the
yeah,
captain of our ship, have us be the one that's calling the shots. And so creating our own content is a perfect way to get into that door.
yeah, yeah. Miss Maggie, loved your stuff there. Nice, nice.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
For sure. I'll throw up some comments here. Facebook user, which I always encourage everybody to connect. Let Eatcam connect with you so I can see your name and your picture. Um, and going to ecam.com/connect will allow me to do that. So appreciate that. It's the no parking. Oh my gosh, I happen to be a coffee creator myself. It's the main hub for offering art commission. I think, like I said, this is a great time because you got so many channels to allow you to make money off of your own content, whether it be Patreon, and really allow the people to help support you. I know I found this for me. I want to ask you, um, handling the business side of being a creator. And my last guest, he is the master at it. If any of you seen last week's episode and know Chris Doe, he talks about the business of being creative, and I know that's always a challenge for me And the hardest thing for me, because I've spent so much time being a creative and not having to, like you said, go hunt and kill the food that you eat. So going to get the clients, going through the client meetings, was that something that was a big leap for you? And is that something that you still, you know, either struggle with or are working through, just the handling of running a business in a studio?
Mhm. Surprisingly, this feels incredibly natural. Uh,
I
I've
need
always
some of what
been.
you got.
It feels incredibly natural. And if if my sister Kristen was here, she'll tell you anytime we go shopping or when we go to the grocery store, I'm always talking to people. I'm talking to the cashier. I'm talking to people who stock stuff, just because I know what that was like. I worked in retail. I've worked in all these random odd jobs, so I get it. It's not always a it's not always a great job, and sometimes you want to have something different, or you're just in a different experience, or whatever it is. You might just be having a bad day. But if you just have someone to say hi to you, just kind of put a smile on your face, it actually lines you up. Because that helped me out when I was in those positions. And I just like to get to know people. I'm always
Yeah,
talking to everyone to the point where it's almost to a fault. Because when I used to work at Costco, I actually got pulled aside because I was talking to so many people as they were coming up the line. The managers would say, "Hey, look, you're talking too much, and you're really holding up the line." And it was a holiday season,
yeah,
so to stop me from talking so much, they actually put me outside to push carts, and so I can stop interacting with people. But that didn't stop me either. It's just so natural for me to connect and just chat, and I'm always throwing myself in random scenarios. So it just
yeah.
feels easy.
Well, I mean, the aspect of now, because like you were saying about PBS, you spent time, like I said, trying to go and get them to notice you and get that meeting to where you could even go in and talk to them about what you were doing. Just that aspect of running a team, or if you have a team or a big team, managing team, paying 1099s, or if you have people that are permanent employees, W9s, the whole aspects of running a business, as far as networking to get clients, networking to get meetings in with companies that you're wanting to do work with. Was that a challenging thing for you? Just like I said, the actual logistics of running a business.
Yeah, no, it's again felt natural. The only thing that didn't feel natural was doing the taxes. I
Okay.
I absolutely hate doing taxes, but I do pay them. Okay, I do take care of those.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
the logistics in terms of managing a team. Being the oldest out of all my siblings, I had to manage them anyway.
Okay.
My parents didn't really speak English, so I had to translate a lot of the conversation from either homework or bills back and forth between families. So in terms of translating the meetings to my team for us to do what we need to do, it was very natural. In terms of keeping morality up, that was also very natural because that was something that we had to deal with growing up. Just because the environment that we had to grow up wasn't exactly uh, applicable to kids.
Yeah.
So I had to really keep our morals up to keep going through the day. And it's no different with in terms of handling some of these tougher projects, meeting these tougher clients, or even just having a bad week or bad day, or even just a bad month. You still have to try and manage so you can keep the morality up so that everyone can keep going. And sometimes you might just have to take that beat and take more of those hits so then they don't have to take some of those
Yeah.
hits. So
Yeah.
then they can keep doing what they're doing, what they're good at, and then you keep marching with them. Because at the end of the day, running a business is not just you. You have a team, you have people you're supporting, and
Yeah.
you have to be aware of that. And so when it comes down to networking, I really do my best to work with people who I feel that will fit our atmosphere, our culture, so that we don't get to the point where we're just burning out. And of course, managing money, finances. I mean, that took a little bit more of a learning curve just because I never had to deal with taxes to this extent.
Yeah.
As I started exploring, learning about the CPAs, that definitely helped out a lot. But yeah, a lot of this doesn't feel overly different. I mean, there's different logistics like the taxes,
Yeah,
making sure that you're paying people on time, of course. But overall, a lot of it feels very, very natural.
yeah, yeah. So you do have full time permanent employees, or is pretty much like contracting, out type of work? What's your kind of business situation as far as like running your business? Is it full time
It's
employees?
No, not yet. But right now we're all contractors,
Yeah.
including myself in my own business, just because I haven't hit that revenue spot for even to hire myself as a full-time employee, just because benefits are so expensive.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, at the moment we're all contractors. But I really do my best to try and keep the same mentality of what it would mean to keep a full-time employee. So keeping track of people's health, making sure people are taking their breaks, making sure we're all in a position where we can continue to do the work and not be burnt out. Where if we hit a point where we need to stop, we just stop. Like
yeah.
no matter where we are, just stop, take a break, call it a day, go home. If you need to like just chill out. Even for myself, I don't like working more than 5 hours. So I tell people if that's not your style, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Just the only thing that matters if we can get the work done and we can get it done on time, that's important. But your
Yeah.
mental health, your well-being is just as important. And so
Yeah.
that's something that I need to make sure that everyone is taking that into consideration
Yeah.
and putting that as a priority. And it's no
Yeah.
different with being around my siblings. Is that if you come home from like a bad day and you want to keep working because you need to pay your bills, I get it. But at the same time, you got to take care of yourself first. You got to
Yeah.
really put yourself as a priority and then go from there. Because if you're burnt out today, you're not going to be able to be good to work tomorrow or even the day after. So really taking care of yourself is really important.
Yeah, yeah. And I found that, like, especially over the last year and a half, that's been a big hot thing in the industry because so many artists are getting burnt out working, especially working for these big studios, and the turnaround and the churn through that, they're putting out films and movies and stuff. That has, mental health in this industry has been a big thing because, like I said, depending on what your position is and kind of what studio you're working at, it is kind of easy to get burnt out because you're working, you know, on all these big, tight deadlines, big production type of things. And so I think that's, like you said, if you don't have your health, you're definitely not going to have, anything in the first place if your health is bad and your mental state
Yeah.
is kind of in this bad place. Um, you spoke about really showing, uh, diversity, and this equity and inclusion within this industry. Um, how do you feel the state of where more diverse creators is at now? Because, like I said, it seemed like there was this big shift, with companies, especially with George Floyd's murder, having this more diverse kind of voice within the industry. Where do you see it at now? You know, ever since it really kind of started to get this groundswell.
Yeah, I there's progress. Let's just be clear that there has been progress made.
Yeah,
Is it enough? Personally, no, I don't think so. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I mean, you can even see it in just films and animations how certain characters are still portrayed, and even their roles, how they're used. There's still work that needs to be done. There still needs to be people who are part of the culture that needs to come in and be part of the production team, because you're having folks who might not be aware or who aren't part of that culture or even from their world, creating narratives for that community specifically and completely missing the mark,
yeah,
right? And so that's still happening, and then that's still even happening here in different industries. Being part of different nonprofits, and even just being part of different conversations, having the conversation, being diverse and being part, being inclusive, is such a huge topic, and it's it was still personally, it's still a long way to go, but we are making progress. The shows are coming out, but there will always be those conflicts of people saying that it shouldn't be this, it shouldn't be that, it should be how it was back then. So we're gonna run into hurdles. We're gonna be running into obstacles. And change is scary. Change is scary, and we need to be able to navigate that,
Yeah.
to bring those representations, bring those stories, because we need to be heard, we need to
Yeah.
be seen. And it's more important that for the next generation of artists and creators to come in, that they need to be able to see that they can see themselves behind the screens. They
Yeah.
can see themselves behind the camera, behind the animation, behind all of that. Because without that, we'll always be put in pits. We're always going to be stuck, and we'll always have other people telling our story. And
Yeah.
that can't keep happening. We need to be able to take that foot and move it forward and say, actually, this is how our story is. This is how I tell my story.
Yeah.
And so we are making those progress. There are organizations that are supporting it. There's fellowships, there's internships. There's so many different programs that help really elevate that. But at the same time, it's hard to not see them because it's difficult because we don't get that kind of exposure or that awareness. And
Yeah.
so just putting that more out there will help elevate that further. But yeah,
Yeah.
I like where we are, but I would like to have more work done.
Yeah, we definitely have, like you said, while there have been some great strides, we definitely have a long way to go for sure. Not only, like I said, and I always say, not only in the production side, but really uh, the executive level, the ones that really green light, really champion a lot of the diverse content out there. We definitely need more people um, of color and diverse backgrounds in those positions as well. That's why I'm really encouraged about the independent creator because they'll create their own story and their own narrative in their own way and not feel like they're locked into you know doing it the Disney way or doing it Pixar way or whatever way it may be. And so I'm always excited about that. That's why I love, like I said, and I've had on a lot of creators from over in Africa that are doing, and the industry is exploding over there tremendously. But I love the fact that they're championing this narrative of we want to tell our own stories in our own way,
Mhm.
and the way we want to put it out there to the world for sure. What are the types of independent projects that you would love to kind of sink your teeth into as far as TKMV's own IP and own story? Is it, you know, what style do you like? Anime style, TV style? Is it horror? What's the kind of stories that you want to tell as a creative?
At the moment, a lot of it is being in the children's space, mainly because uh, before I did all of this, I did a lot of children's book illustrations, and it just grew and grew and grew to where it is now. And I volunteer at the elementary schools around my city, around Arizona, and I've learned a lot from kids. And I've also seen that there's definitely a need for storytelling, and of course education will always be important, but what I thought was interesting was science. Like I
Yeah,
always wanted to be a paleontologist, but didn't realize what that phrase was or what the term was or what even the field was. I just knew I thought it'd be cool to dig up dinosaur bones. So can combine the two, I realized that I really wanted to dive further into children's media and really expand further into that. And once I, secure Yazzie and Jazzy into fitting into those roles, I would like to continue exploring it and really diving into children's media either through animation, through film, or even through storybooks.
yeah,
And from there, I don't want to lock myself into just one category, but I enjoy also exploring things in science fiction, horror, different genres to tell different narratives is also important. And I would like to explore any of it. But right now, like the main focus is to be in children's media.
yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely exploring for sure. Like I said, I've had on a lot of children's book artists and illustrators and writers. Um, and actually, my next week's guest, they do a lot of animation writing, uh, TV animation writing for children. So it's definitely a space that exposes, which I think is the big thing not only to the industry but just to other concepts like science and math, and getting them interested in those in a fun, engaging way. But I'm also like you. I like all genres, and pretty much can enjoy the kind of silly slapstick you know type of animation to the more cerebral anime style or
Yeah.
adult animation type. So, um, like you say, you don't like getting locked in. You just want to focus on, okay, what's the story that we want to tell, and is the story a compelling story and something that I want to see. Um, with that, uh, what it what would be, and you kind of did it with what you would say, but what would be the advice that you would give somebody that's looking to do really what you're doing, and
Mhm.
looking to get into animation and maybe even running their own studio?
Lots of research, and don't be afraid to get started. And I
Oh,
say those two things. I mean, getting started with anything will always be difficult. So, I mean, as mentioned before, as soon as you get started and you can learn to crawl, you walk, you run, before you know, you have everything running. But doing your research and being aware is just as important, just because so much is changing in the industry. Things are constantly shifting. It took me a while to realize that Unreal Engine is being used for animated TV shows
oh
and
yeah.
even being used for movie production, TV production. I'm like, what? Why didn't anyone tell me this? So it took me a while to catch on to that. And so now there's big movements into it because it's such a fast rendering engine, and then you can do everything basically live.
Real
So
time,
it's
yeah.
so being aware of those things will help you, one, keep pace with how the industry is constantly shifting. And this goes back to the conversation with AI. Technology is always evolving, things are always improving. So it's up to you to try and be as aware of as you can of these different tools, so then you can bring it in, especially if you're doing it as a business and you're working with other people. If you're doing it as a business and you have people working with you, it's just as critical for you to be aware, because you have other people who are dependent on you to bring in that work and to stay active in the industry. If it's just you, then that's okay. That's up to you how you want to go about. But if you have other people depending on you to bring in that work, if you're not used to that stress or to that level of management, then you're going to be in for an interesting wild ride.
Yeah, that's like I said, it's a totally different. And that was my biggest, like I said, lesson. It's a totally different mindset from moving to employee to employer.
Hmm.
And like you said, you have, even if it's yourself, it's on you to provide for your livelihood. And if you're an employer and you have employees, you're providing for their livelihood, how they live and how they can pay their bills and all of that. So it's definitely a big mind shift, for sure, to move from. And like I said, that was kind of my biggest challenge of moving from employee to, a business owner, entrepreneur type person, and going out and getting work. Having to go out and get clients. You don't have to worry about that when you're an employee. You know,
Yeah.
the company will bring the work to you, and you just sit and
Yeah.
do it. But when you're running your own company, freelance entrepreneur, you have to go out and get the work. Otherwise, it's not just gonna fall into your lap, for sure. Um, Again, everybody that's just tuning in and may catch this on the replay, we had a little snafu at the beginning, but I appreciate everybody that's kind of stuck through this. Everybody that'll catch this on the replay for sure. Like I said, I may have to do some editing because I had to restart a whole new stream for this, and didn't go through the intro. So, but this has been definitely a great show, Tony. So looking forward to having you back on. Like I said, not only as a guest, but I see a great opportunity where we can work together and do some work together for sure and create something. That's why I love the industry. Uh, you meet so many creative people doing so many creative things. It just excites me about uh, this time. You just mentioned Unreal, totally Unreal software, piece of software.
I
They
knew that
picked the
joke was
right.
coming.
They picked the right name, and that's what I love because it's free. It's a free software that will allow creatives to a certain point. I mean, as you start to earn revenue from it, obviously you'll invest in it and that. But as a person that's just starting out, or a small business or entrepreneur, I love this. Like I said, I love this time because there are tools like Unreal. There's tools like Blender. So many tools out there that are free and affordable that creatives can use to get started in what they want to do. Like you mentioned before, the key thing is just starting, and jumping into your lane, and not really focusing on what other people are kind of doing and letting that discourage you through this. So I can't thank you enough, Tony, for, like I said, one, being a part of the Color Motion family. Like I said, your family now, so you're always, welcome on the show, and whatever you're promoting and doing, that's what family is for, to help lift it up. Definitely looking forward to us doing some work together, for sure. Make sure that you go over to Tony's social channels, connect with him. Like I said, they do some amazing work. He Check out his website, TKMV Studio. It's on LinkedIn. That's how we connected. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Check out his podcast because he's had some amazing guests on his show. And looking forward to seeing even more amazing guests on the show. TKMVstudio.com/animationbrush. The big thing is really exposing people not only to the industry, but to other creators of color that are in diverse backgrounds that are doing some amazing things. I think that's the big thing, is really exposing. I wish I'd have got that when I was in school, having somebody come to my school and speak about, animation and in the industry. And it's funny because I've talked to a lot of guests that, the first thing they say was, wow, I didn't know you can make money, you know, doing this. And not realizing that there are people that are getting paid and make a living doing this thing that you love, for sure. So I can't thank you enough for being on the show. All this information will be in the show notes up on the channel. So again, make sure you hop on over there, uh, like, give a thumbs up. More importantly, comment. Commenting on the episodes definitely helps the channel, helps the algorithm, and like I said, it's a great way to engage with the guest and really get some kind of one-to-one feedback, for sure. So again, Tony, I can't thank you enough for being on the show, bro.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate this. This is a great opportunity. I enjoyed this. The conversation was great. And, this is just part of the network, and I'm happy to be part of the family too.
Awesome, awesome. If you could hang out in the green room while I close this out, I appreciate it, so we can talk a little more. Uh, but everybody, please, again, help me thank my friend Tony Pham for being on the show and really sharing his journey with us. Hang out just a second there, Tony, and I'll get right back to you while I close this out.
Cool.
Everybody. Like I said, little hiccup there at the beginning, but as we say, hey, what happens live happens live. You just gotta roll with it. Trust me, that wasn't the first, and I'm definitely sure it won't be the last for sure. Miss Maggie, I appreciate you always, supporting the channel. I know my guest, Tony, appreciates you coming by and supporting the channel. Mr. No Parking, Dewan, I appreciate you. Kenny, I appreciate everybody that supports the show. I so much appreciate you supporting the channel because, like I said, I always preach my mission. I always preach my, what the show is all about, and trying to make it the best possible show that I can make it. but I definitely can't do that without you, the viewers, and without definitely my friends and guests coming on the show and making it the best possible show that I can make it. Just got to work through all the little hiccups that I go through and try and refine them as best as I can. Well, with this has been a great episode, and this season has, like I said, gotten kicked off to a great, great season. Definitely, next week is no exception. Really looking forward to next week as well. And I always love doing these 2-for-1 episodes. You're gonna get 2-for-1 next week with my guests, Charnel and Shanae Gibbs, the Gibbs sisters. They are film and TV animation screenwriters for Disney and so many other studios. So definitely looking forward to sitting down with both of them. So you will definitely get 2-for-1 next week. So excited about that. And with that, like I said, can't thank you enough for everybody that's tuned in live. Definitely can't thank you enough for the viewers that are going to catch this on the replay. But I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great week, everybody. Cheers.